All right. Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, November 6th, 2025. The Baker Fairburn Hockey Show is back here on a game day morning as the Sabres prepare to host the St. Louis Blues. I'm your host, Kris Baker. You can find me on X at Sabres Prospects. Here, as always, with Matthew Fairburn. He's your Sabres beat writer over at The Athletic. You can find all of Matthew's work at theathletic.com/Sabres. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell to get notified. And you can find the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And always, be kind and leave a 5-star review. All right, Matthew, let's just talk about this team. Last time out was on Tuesday. Sabres dropped another overtime decision, this time to the Utah Mammoth by a 2-1 count. Noah Ostlund gets his first goal in the NHL. And Alex Lyon, pretty nice performance there, 33 saves in the Sabres net. Kind of a weird game in terms of line configuration, just with what the Sabres were battling. You saw Lindy Ruff shuffle the deck quite a bit as the game progressed. Make no mistake, Utah carried the pace of play, outshot the Sabres by a pretty wide margin, really carried the play in significant chunks of the game. My takeaway, I think we should probably just start about Tage Thompson, and just had a tough night statistically. I just want to kind of get your thoughts maybe on Tage's game, just to dive right into the individual performance there. But also, where are the Sabres at right now with Tage Thompson 13 games into the season? When I look at his numbers real quick, just to kind of refresh him through 13 games, Thompson's at 5 goals and 5 assists on the year. 9.1 shooting percentage for Tage, a guy that likes to rifle the puck quite a bit. He is 51.2% on draws, and he has taken a fair amount for a team that has kind of struggled at the dot, but I think his performance through 13 games has maybe left everyone wanting a little bit more.
I would agree with that, and I would say that, that game against Utah, he had a couple of chances, one on a feed from Quinn and one that went right off the post and probably missed going in by less than an inch. So, I struggle to harp too much on the scoring piece of it because he could have had another, he's just missed on a few chances, and that 9.1% is well below his career mark. And so you would think there would be at least some regression there. What concerns me, though, and why I think he's a good place to start our conversation this morning, is all the other numbers around him right now. They are, when he's on the ice at 5-on-5, they have 44% of the expected goals. The high danger chances are 46-29 in favor of the opposition when Thompson is on the ice at 5-on-5. So he is not carrying play, right? He is not driving, driving this team the way you would expect your best forward to drive the team. And part of it right now, no doubt, is the fact that he doesn't have anybody to play with. They've kept McLeod, Tuck, and Doan together, and because of that, Tage Thompson doesn't really have anybody to play with. He was playing with Greenway and Quinn to start the game on Tuesday. Kulik is out with the inner ear stuff. Benson is out, has a walking boot on his left foot. Norris is out, back skating, but he's not coming back, anytime soon. At least I would say probably another few weeks to a month on that. So all of his typical line mates are out of the lineup. And this is just one of the symptoms of the injury problems that they're having is, this guy has nobody to play with. Lindy Ruff brought it up yesterday that, when asked about that, is this is a guy that's supposed to lift up and make other guys better, right? But there is still a component, especially as a winger, where you need the right skill sets playing with you, and you need the right players around you to bring out some aspects of your game. So I would say a mildly concerning start. All that said, the run this team is on, I know they're still stuck in the crowded mush of the Eastern Conference, but what is it? Points in 9 of 10 here? And, you know, treading water to an extent in the Eastern Conference because it's so competitive. But when you think about Dahlin's not really going, Thompson's not really going, Tuck is running hot and cold, and they have injuries. I mean, they've got 3 guys at the very least that you would have thought were playing in Rochester, in Oslin, Roseanne, and Dunn, playing big minutes. It's like, it's not so bad to be. You might look back on this a few months down the road when they're in the thick of it and say, it could have got away from them here. And they still have to survive a little bit longer with these injuries. But a big part of that would be Tage coming around.
Yeah, if I look at the game against Utah, and they played incredibly well given the lineup that they had. They kind of held them off, I think it was the best way to put it. They just didn't generate enough. Tage's individual numbers in that game were brutal in terms of Corsi stats, scoring chance stats. I mean, it was, I've never seen, I don't think I've seen a game like that when you look at Thompson's individual line in a long time, if ever. Besides Kesselring having a really good scoring opportunity, Thompson probably had the Sabres' 2 best opportunities to score on what you mentioned in the entire game before Oslin connected. I felt bad for him in a way. Like, he opens the game, he's got Greenway playing center. I think Greenway is an important player to the Sabres, but he's not that important where you should be centering your top line. I think when you talk about Thompson's year-to-date aggregate numbers, don't we think a lot of this is Benson not being by his side for 5 of those 13 games? I mean, when you look at Benson's impacts on the team last year in terms of scoring chances, expected goals, 4%, all of that, Benson was at the top of the stack. And I think there's something there. Like and Lindy was moving guys up and down. Krebs went up for a little bit. That was part of the shuffling of the lineup that Lindy did. But let's talk. I mean, I don't know if you want to say anything about Benson real quick, but I think that there was a big miss from Lindy in that game, which to me, I think it was pretty clear. Like something that Tage, or, a pairing that could have been moved to play with Tage that maybe could have got things going, because you talk about matching skill sets. There were 2 guys going in that game, and I'm talking specifically about Roseanne and Oslin, that maybe Tage could have taken a spin with to get him going instead of McLeod, instead of Krebs, instead of Greenway. He did everything else, every other permutation, it seemed, but what to me was the obvious one.
And I think one of the things we've seen from Tage Thompson is that with younger line mates, he can lift some of those guys up in a way. I think he has some of that on ice leadership, right? Like Kulik, Benson, these guys, like he doesn't mind playing with some of these guys, and it works out, especially when there's a playmaking tilt to Noah Oslin's game. At practice on Wednesday, they were going with McLeod, Tuck, Thompson. So they've broken up the line that was working, which I don't think is timing-wise, probably not the worst timing. I didn't think it was the most impactful game from Josh Doan the other night. But he's still, we've seen the body of work at this point through 13 games. He is one of their most consistent forwards, a guy that can get things going. So he is, let me pull up what I had yesterday. He was with Krebs and Greenway, Doan, Krebs and Greenway, Roseanne, Oslin, Quinn, and then Malenstein, Kozak, Dunn.
I don't hate Greenway and Doan at playing opposite wings. And I everyone wants to kind of beat up on Krebs right now. You need him in that spot right now, given the illness and the injury. I don't actually hate that, but sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you could The alternative, I guess, is to have Kozak there, which would be a real dog line, right? You'd have 3 guys. Krebs, it is what it is right now. You need him, like you said. I mean, they're short on centers, especially with Kulik out. It's pretty dire down the middle, and that's the
He's starting to have
situation.
that Adam Mayer effect on every line. Like when Mayer was a player, he was just like the offensive nullifier.
Yeah,
And
like he's just
kind of feeling that right now with Krebs. And it's
well,
simple things, catching passes are off, and the effort's there, but everything else is just a work in progress still.
there was a few. He was out there with Osland and Roseanne at the start of the game, I believe, or at least at some point during the game, that was the combo that they were going with, and I counted 2 or 3 times where they had a nice thing going in the offensive zone that was thwarted by something Krebs did or failed to do.
Yep.
It's like Osland saw a play and got it to Krebs, and Krebs, fumbled the puck or made a pass that was just off, or didn't see something. You're looking, and of course I'm looking from up top, right? The game's slower from up top and everything, but you see something, you see a guy open, and Krebs is a half second late getting it there. It's just kind of at this point. I mean, we've talked about him, and I think he just kind of is what he is at this point. I know he's not even he turns 25, I think, in January, so you never know, but he's one of the guys that development wise got pushed in probably a little too soon, got stuck in a role that he just had to survive, and it feels like he's never been able to find the offensive confidence that made him such a productive player in junior. And the size and strength aren't what I would call ideal for the role that he plays, but he plays above that a lot of times because of effort, energy, and willingness and being in the right place. But offensively, just not the best mix for Osland and Roseanne, who look really good right now. I mean, the depth in the organization has been tested in such a way that, like, I would not have expected that, like I said, Osland, Roseanne, and Dunn would all be in the lineup right now. And if you told me that they all were in the lineup, I definitely would not think that things were going well for the Sabres. Just given that general lack of experience among those 3 players. But Dunn has been solid, and Osland and Roseanne are playing with a lot more confidence. Playing together, I think, is really helping them. Guys that have real chemistry together, and they know where each other's going to be. They have confidence in each other. I think I'm just seeing a different Osland with Roseanne next to him. This guy that maybe it's just the fact that he has that previous call up earlier in the season, but he seemed like he was playing a little nervous offensively, gripping the stick and just like, bobbling pucks a little bit, just not as smooth as we've seen him play in Rochester. But now you see him entering the zone, and the subtle little plays that he's making, and these little slip passes to Roseanne, and give and goes and finding open ice. It's just fun to watch.
A little
And
more direct.
yeah, decisive, just going. And that goal they had was great. I mean, Osland misses the net on the play leading up to him missing the net was a great play, that they
Yeah.
set up, and he missed the net, and you're kind of like, geez, like, you got to have that one. But Roseanne's following up immediately, crashing the net, knocks the puck over, and Osland makes it happen. So they've given this lineup a little bit of juice, and it makes me, to your point, I think the idea of Tage Thompson with Osland is actually really interesting. And Roseanne, we talked about it on the last show, that this guy has defensive chops. I think it showed up again on Tuesday. The way he uses his stick to break up plays, and the way he can close stood out to me. There was a few plays where he killed some energy in the offensive zone for the Mammoth because of how he closed on the point. And you can see it in the neutral zone, the way he takes away time and space. So I'm with you. Like that's something that I would try and see how it works because you could move. All you have to do now is rotate the wingers, right? Doan can go back with McLeod and Tuck. Quinn can go with, you could kind of put, I guess it depends where you want to put Quinn. He's the other piece of this, but Quinn can go with Greenway and Krebs. I think he's played enough with those guys. And,
I think he played enough in overtime, Quinn. I think
well,
he's played enough in overtime. That
yeah,
Matador
maybe he's played enough,
shit on
period.
that goal.
Right.
But
Apparently, because his controller was unplugged on that one. He was just he was a spectator on that overtime goal. I don't know what happened there, but it does also lead me to the Mason Geertsen conversation because he's not penciled in among the 12 right now if Kozak is good to go on Thursday night, but he is still taking up space on the roster. And he had on Tuesday night, what did he have? Like
7 shifts for 3 minutes and 49 seconds of
3
total
minutes
work.
and 49 seconds. So we
He's
know
got the highest hourly rate on the team.
what Mason Geertsen is there for. And to his credit, I think he is playing that role, right? Every time he's been in the lineup, there's been something after the whistle or whatever that he's tried to do. He's tried to mix it up. Teams don't seem to want to fight him for obvious reasons. They probably wouldn't stand a very good chance in that fight, but B, it's not conducive to, he's probably taking somebody off the ice that they don't want to take off, and they know that he's not getting a lot of ice time anyways. So he doesn't really. It doesn't matter if he's in the box, but the reason I bring it up is because, and I asked Lindy Ruff about it yesterday. He said that they were chasing a goal, so that's why they were short shifting everybody, and you know he said at times we went 11-7 last year, and guys really liked the extra ice time, but it's like you're not going 11-7, you're going 6-11, and you know by not having but and just having an extra guy that can fight essentially. And he said ideally he'd be in the 6 to 8 minute range if they weren't chasing the game. But he hasn't gotten 6 minutes in a game all season. It's 426, 448, 206, 527, and 349. So he hasn't gotten 6 to 8 minutes once. And when you have three goalies on your roster and you have all the injuries, I don't really have a problem with Mason Geertsen, coming into the season, the plan for him, right? When you're healthy and, you had at the time, I guess they had two goalies because Luukkonen was on IR. I didn't mind it. I understood it. But a couple of factors have me wondering about it because you're so injured. You are, you know, you have three goalies now, and there's not really an imminent end to that I can foresee. And the other part of this is that I do think the rest of the team has kind of stepped up the team toughness a little bit. The pack mentality. You saw Jordan Greenway against Washington. We've seen Josh Dunn. Samuelson's playing a little bit nastier. There's more of a team toughness element that I think is not making Mason Geertsen as necessary, especially given all that other context. And the reason I think about it as well is because of Ostlund and Roseanne makes you wonder about Hellenius, right? And what he could do with a little audition. I'm not saying he should come up permanently at 19 years old, but it seems like a pretty good opportunity to get him a taste of the NHL while you have these injuries. And then when guys come back, he can go back down with that experience downloaded and, you know, maybe take another step in the AHL and be more ready the next time that he comes up. So I don't know. The Geertsen thing feels like it's running its course a little bit. Even I know we talked about it a little bit on Tuesday, but it's still there because he's in the lineup.
Yeah, a little shocking that he's still here, given everything that they battle in, whether it's Zucker, Kulik, Benson, Norris, you name it. Who's next, right? It's almost like you're expecting another one to drop here soon and enter the nurse's office down at KeyBank Center. But, I just think it was too obvious there with those young guys going. I'm really curious to see what Rosane and Oslin can do again with more, just more game experience, as little as it's been in their careers, but also this season under their belts. Lindy had him out there in the final minute of that game against Utah in a 1-1 game. It speaks to the confidence that he's built with those players, I think. I mean, also the lack of options for sure. But does he have the confidence to try Thompson there if it doesn't get going with whatever combination he rolls out with that's not Rosane and Oslin? I would expect it. By the way, last year, they had 8 games each. Oslin and Rosane, they were the 2 players above Benson in their share of scoring chances when they were on the ice last year. I have all that rundown that we did to kind of summarize last season still on the show sheet. I just went down there and said, that kind of makes sense. Works into the conversation. But that was a good segue from your conversation about Krebs. Did he come up to, early? Did he not? It's almost like you're basically saying, was he properly developed before getting thrown into the wildfire at the NHL level? It's a good segue into talking about Rosane and Oslin. It's not a good segue to talk about Geertsen. It's a good segue to talk about Rosane and Oslin. Because I was reading your gamer yesterday morning, and you said something to the effect of, you can't make sweeping conclusions about the Sabres trade with Utah, about who won it, right? And you probably can't make sweeping conclusions about Oslin and Rosane, but their performance in that individual game, and Rosane's past 2 points, goal and assist. I think it's just another reminder. And we hinted at this on Tuesday when we did our show together, the patience that's often required with prospects and young players and letting that development breathe. The expectation that they're going to come up in their first taste and light the world on fire. They're all different players. They develop at different rates as humans, as hockey players, how they process the experience that they're getting. And, I think setting that expectation that it is a process and you can let them cook for a little while in Rochester and break it off in small chunks, bigger chunks, and at some point they're going to get it. That's a really good way to keep ensuring that your team, the Buffalo Sabres in this case, is not the youngest or among the youngest in the league. By throwing these young guys in too early, giving them contracts too early. So I just wanted to mention that because, look, there's exceptions. Like Montreal's the youngest team in the league right now. Pretty sure they're still at the top of the stack in the division, in the conference, right? Maybe the league. I probably not the entire league, but we'll see what happens with them. But we talked about it over the summer. History shows that the more experienced teams are the ones that qualify for the playoffs and do well in the playoffs. Montreal could be an anomaly. There's always exceptions, but I just wanted to kind of go off on that again because I don't want to give a lot of oxygen to the negativity in Saberland, but man, it got really annoying when Oslin came up in his first call this year and it's like, he's not serviceable. He's not usable. It's like, I think positionally, everything else he was, maybe a little hesitation, but we're like, a lot of folks are so quick to jump to that conclusion. Sometimes it's a good reminder. I've been covering prospects in this market for a long time. They've all been busts. I keep saying it. Sam Reinhart was a bust. Rasmus Dahlin, people wanted him traded out of town. And I know that he's not playing great at the moment. We know why. But again, I just wanted to mention that. I'm going to get off my soapbox, but it's another example. And we'll see what happens with these guys. But right now, they're trending in a good direction. And I'm sitting here really pushing to have Thompson play with him in this spot if you have to, because I think that they could run with him. They can run with him.
They absolutely can. They can think the game with him. And that's such a crucial piece that you can see missing from some, like a Krebs. I think if at some point maybe he could have thought the game that way, but you don't see him playing that way right now. And it's a good point about the patience required. And I think the difference, I don't know what it is that leads to the impatience. It's hard, it's case by case, but it's a good reminder to take everything for what it is along the road to where they're going, right? The call up from Roseanne where it's like, "Oh, last year," where it's like he was invisible, like, where was he? What's he doing? And it's like everything is context. Everything is, experience that they're kind of downloading and building towards something. And I think about the Prospects Challenge in September. I think that was sort of a point where a lot of people were eager to write off Roseanne because he should have taken over that tournament and didn't. And, didn't score, didn't have much of an impact. And you can, something I would say I've learned from you, especially when I started, covering this sport, for the first time. And those were a few of the first events that I covered and, watching some of those games with you. And those are just like small pieces of the puzzle, right? Like development camp and the 3-on-3 scrimmage and development camp. And then these rookie games, it's all information and it's all context to their development, but it's also not the whole story. And how they do in a rookie tournament may not tell us how they're going to do in the AHL, the NHL regular season. So you want to see mostly how they're responding, how they're learning, how they're, the rate of their development. And it is just a brief window here with Roseanne, but in particular with him, he should be the lesson about, you know, coming to conclusions too quickly, because while it's too quick to say that he's, turned a corner and he's going to become, something, it was also, I think this shows us that it was also too quick to say that he was nothing, right? That he's just a career AHLer, he's a quadruple A player is the term that Scott Wheeler likes to use, right? That kind of tweener that maybe he'll never get there. I don't know if he's labeled Roseanne as that, but he uses that term for that type of
He
guy.
did, because I remember
Um,
having a conversation about it and saying, "Let's just chill on that for a second." That's almost a sweeping conclusion
right.
that I don't
And,
yeah.
I mean, that's what, Wheeler and Pronman, these people that cover prospects and have to have opinions, like conclusions are part of the game. But when you're covering it in the context that we do, I think there's a bigger story there and there's more nuance. And what a great development it would be for the Sabres if Roseanne became a really solid middle six winger who could, get some
Yeah.
goals. And strength is the big thing for both of those players right now. Like their confidence is coming. They're thinking the game the right way. They're making plays. So it's why I tie Hellenius into the conversation, because it's not an all or nothing proposition. You don't you can call him up without it being something that ruins his development. You can call him up and give him a taste and send him back down. And he might be able to help you for a handful of games while you deal with all these injuries. And thinking about their development in a different way. I feel like the way they thought about development early on was just like, let them develop at the NHL level or bring
Yeah.
them over from Europe and get them into the AHL. And it doesn't have to be so all or nothing. It can be the way it's been, frankly, with Roseanne and Osland, which, again, we're doing a show right now. So, things can change, but it seems like this is working for these guys, right? Like the way it's typically done, I feel like throughout the league is, bring these guys up, send them back, like bring them up a little bit, like give them, small chunks at a time until it starts to click. And it's clicking right now.
And the same thing applies to Poltapov, by the way. You had a mailbag out with The Athletic, and I kind of jumped in and answered a question on Poltapov, just reading him. I was like, I'll answer this guy. He's staying home. He's making good money for the first time in his life. He wants to take care of his mother. He gets a little raise next year and he'll see where he goes, but he's also making sure he's ready. He wants to fully develop his game to the ceiling that he's capable of doing in the KHL before coming over. We'll see if he comes over, right? But 3 points in the last 2 games for the Sabres, the win over Washington, and they get back into overtime. They get the overtime point against Utah. You don't get those points without Rosane.
No, you
You
definitely
really
don't.
don't.
I mean,
You really don't.
this could
And
go way off the rails, like, if these guys weren't ready, right? If they were playing like they were last year even, I think there would have been, or even in Oslin's case, like, playing like he was early in the season, which wasn't bad, but wasn't impactful, right?
yeah,
That you could
yeah.
see that he was positionally sound and he was doing the right things, but he wasn't impacting the game. They're impacting the game, and, like, without that, this team, that's why I say we might look back in a few months and say, "Man, how the hell did they keep that on the rails?" And that's maybe a good sign about where this team could be going, and what they might be building internally, just from a mental makeup standpoint. Is not only did they start 0-3, but they've had injuries that have necessitated some really funky lineups, and they have points in 9 out of 10, and what is it, 7 or 8 straight now? I mean, the last time they didn't get a point was that game in Montreal.
Yeah.
So 5 straight in overtime, it's kinda nuts, and I get it, they're not playing well in overtime, so now that's kind of a separate conversation, because, as we've said, it's kind of a coin flip proposition, but the Sabres aren't exactly giving themselves a 50-50. This is like a double-sided coin, I think, for the Sabres. They're not really giving themselves a puncher's chance in a lot of these overtimes, but they're hanging in there somehow with a patchwork lineup, which I think will serve them well later in the year as they presumably get healthy. But then you're not going to panic, I think, if Kulik goes down for a couple games in January, or Zucker goes out, because it's like, all right, Roseanne's waiting or Oslin's waiting, and these guys that are ready, are there to plug in.
On the next one, it's funny. We look at Hellenius as a first round draft pick and had a good start. He's having a good start. He had an assist last night in the Amherst loss. I'm going to throw another name in the mix because you're kind of running out of guys in the dugout, or in the bullpen to kind of go
Very
to.
much so.
Because guys like Neuchev, could still benefit from more time. Good player, not an NHL ready player. I do want to point out, kind of more in the Josh Dunn mold, Jake Lecision. 2 more goals last night for the Amerks, up to 5 on the year. He's got some NHL experience. I'm trying to bring up right now on the fly how many games he had when with Vegas. 77 NHL games. Hasn't done a ton statistically, 6 points in those games, it looks like. But former second round pick, been around, he's 26 years old. And when I look at his numbers down in Rochester this year, so he played on a line last night, centering Neuchev and Tyler Kopf, the kind of the second line for the Amerks. But kind of moving up the leaderboard here in his last few games. So 5 goals, 2 assists. Don't have face-off numbers, but his all situations, his goals for 13 on the ice against 11, 13 when he's on the ice, 11 against. But he's not one of these power play guys exclusively, So something to maybe keep in the back of your mind as you're looking to maybe have seasoned guys that have more reps through the system. I know we were just talking about Oslin and Rosane, but if they feel that Hellenius, they don't want to throw him into the fire just yet and break off a small chunk, even though I think you could. I do want to. I'm not petitioning for Jake Lecision to be the guy that gets the next call. I'd love to see Hellenius. I really would. Let's not forget about this guy. That layer of depth that you have. I just want to throw it out there. On
And,
overtime. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
well, one quick point is that knowing Lindy Ruff's tendencies, he's gone pretty quickly to some of those guys that have experience, like a Dunn, and I mean even Geertsen that he's kind of leaning on here. And so it's a good call out by you to think, because there's not many of them left, but he's probably the one with the experience and some center time that would maybe get the nod if they don't feel comfortable yet with Hellenius.
That's why he's here in the organization. That's why Zach Jones is here in the organization. It's for these guys that have seen it. They had their taste. They're just stashing them in the side. They're keeping their tools sharp. And then when they need them in a pinch, you call them up the plug. Again, it's something to think about. But yeah, 5 shots on goal last night too led the Amerks in a loss. So, the overtime thing is, I keep thinking about it. You and I talked on the phone yesterday, and I'm like, I'm not always just comfortable saying, it's a total crapshoot, because it's not. Like, there's things you can do, and there's things for the coaching staff to work on with this team. Shift changes, just your strategy, your personnel. We already mentioned Quinn. Maybe it's time to think about that a little bit. But again, lack of options, lack of personnel. I get it, but it is a challenge to that coaching staff to kind of figure it out a little more maybe than they have. The defensive breakdowns, the coverage, maybe reworking the strategy. Just like they need to rework the power play. The power play's been absolute dog shit the past couple of games. I'm so tired of the choreographed, telegraphed drop pass. It should be an option. It's almost like they say, no, you are making that drop pass. We've seen
There was one
instances
with
again
Owen
where it just
Power,
looks
like, was almost in the zone, or one of them was almost in the zone, maybe Quinn, and then he drop passes it, and Power's done it too, where it's like you practically have the zone, so
take the
just
zone. It should
take
be an
it.
option.
Just take it. The whole point of the drop pass is to easily enter the zone. You're about to easily enter the zone. Just do it. And look, they have a lot of pieces out, so chemistry on the power play is probably a bit of an issue, but I think it's a good call out because winning on the margins is, when we can already see in the Eastern Conference how fine the margins are going to be. And the little things in overtime and the little things, I mean, the power play is not a little thing, it's a major thing. And if you can get it going, you're going to start stacking points. You're going to change games, especially when you have a goalie playing as well as Alex Lyon is right now. And that's a challenge on coaching for sure. And there's a responsibility on the players to get things going as well. But overtime, Alex Tuck has that chance. It's stopped. They don't go to the net to kind of press, and Utah just gets a free, they drop the puck, goalie drops the puck, and they're going. And Lindy Ruff called that out after the game. Like, he would have liked to have seen go to the net, force the face off, you know, get another chance potentially at possession. And, then the defensive zone coverage just completely breaks down. So, when we were talking about this early on after one or two overtime losses, I was fine chalking it up as, hey, look, these are kind of 50-50 games in overtime. But like I said, this is not 50-50 for the Sabres right now. They're not
We're seeing a
winning.
pattern.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're not winning in overtime. And so now all of a sudden it's a problem. And when you're a team that's not stacking regulation wins, it's costing you points. And so good on them for getting these points, and the loser points will get you into the mix and into the fight. But this Eastern Conference is pretty tight right now, and it'd be nice to see them get more of these points. And it's not just there's patience involved. There's, you know, good decisions on line changes, like you mentioned. There's personnel decisions that they could be making. There's hockey IQ stuff in terms of defensive zone coverage. Like, I don't really know what Quinn was doing
You
on
got to
that
go
play.
man. You got
I
to go
just
man. I mean,
I don't
yeah.
really know what was going on there and how he got such a wide open path to the net. I know it's 3-on-3, but still. So definitely a problem. And you put it in the category of, you know, like the margins, like I said, the little things. And there could be bigger problems, right? It's a better problem to have than not being able to get games to overtime because you're not playing well. But they definitely need to. The power play to me is a bigger issue than overtime, but I wonder if personnel could solve some of their problems on the power play. But
A lot of this
it's
just goes back to shooting percentage for the team, though, too. Like we're talking about overtime, we're talking about the power play. Sabres shooting percentage right now, 9.6 as a team. That's pretty much what Tages is in aggregate for the season. Montreal leads the league right now with a 14.5 shooting
is that
percentage.
5-on-5 or all situations?
That's all situations. I don't have a power play shooting percentage. I just wanted to bring up shot data real quick while we were talking about this. Because I think, obviously I'm sitting here like, as you were talking, I'm like, I don't want to sit here and overthink this overtime thing. I mean, that's kind of how you always looked at a 3-on-3. The challenge is on the coaches to kind of figure out how to manage it. But then I'm thinking, boy, am I overthinking this, And I'm like, let me just look at some numbers real quick for the team. I didn't realize they were 9.6 shooting percentage for the year. So, the spread, just to kind of give an idea for folks that aren't looking at the numbers right now, Montreal leads the league 14.5. The Sabres are 25th in the league, and the league with a 9.6%, and the league low is 7.8. League average is 10.9.
10.9, and the Sabres shooting percentage on the power play is 11.6. Montreal's shooting percentage on the power play is 27.9.
Yeah, there you go.
So
shooting percentage,
if some of that luck starts to change, some of it's luck, some of it is, of course, shooting percentage isn't entirely luck, but you would expect a bit of a regression bump. Some of that, too, is not having some guys like Kulik, Zucker, Josh Norris is a scorer. He's back skating, so that's a nice sign, I think, for him. That it's been kind of, I get it, the pessimism surrounding Josh Norris and the doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm.
I probably got 20 tweets yesterday of like, oh, he's nearing a return so he can get injured again and, whatever. But there's a very real possibility that this guy comes back in the middle of December, sometime before Christmas, and is the player that they thought he was going to be. Like, injury prone is fair at this point because some of these are recurring things, but also you're injury prone sometimes until you're not, right? And, luck can change for a guy. So, I've gotten a few tweets that I can't tell if they're tongue in cheek or if they're just, being overly dramatic about like, oh, this guy's career is done, blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's nothing to suggest that about this injury. I mean, it seems like one that he should be able to come back from and potentially be the guy that they thought, that they were getting. And I think it's all tied into the Kevin Adams negativity and the skepticism about Kevin Adams, and it's a reason to go after Kevin Adams. But I think personally, I look at it, and maybe it's because, you see these guys up close and you see the work they put in, and Josh Norris in particular has done nothing to deserve the vitriol. I feel like he's kind of a consummate professional and a guy that has taken this pretty hard and taken it pretty personally that he's missing time. So just throw that out there as a caveat here that I think this guy could still impact your team in a big way.
It's a great call out, by the way. The Kevin Adams situation has amplified all the negativity, whether it's talking about Josh Norris, talking about the prospects like I was talking about. And that's a key point in all of this, by the way, is that just everything's kind of over amplified a little bit. I think
it's
just
like looking for reasons to pick apart Kevin Adams, which
right.
I'm sorry,
fair, but
which is fair,
at
but
the
you
same
don't
time,
need
but
to.
it's not always fair to the players.
Well, and you also don't need to look for reasons, right? Like the reasons are self-evident. There's plenty of them. You don't need to like pick at scabs that are like, I get
conspiracy theory almost.
Right. Like I get the Josh Norris, the criticism of the Josh Norris trade. I understand it. That's kind of a different piece entirely to just like assuming this guy's going to get hurt again, or that his career is over. I mean, what is he, like 27 years old? Like, and he had a torn oblique last year, and it sounds like maybe something similar this year, like torn obliques are not career enders. The shoulder, if it were another shoulder, then we could talk about, is this guy going to be able to hold up? But
Yeah.
I mean, whether he's going to be worth the money, whether he was worth the trade, all those things, sure. But Kevin Adams has given plenty of fodder to those who want to criticize him without necessarily making it all about Josh Norris or Roseanne or, you know, it's created this weird cocktail of ingredients that are making people almost want to find the negative of like Osland is not going to be good. Another reason to pick apart Kevin Adams. There's plenty without that, right? Like the results of 5 seasons and you know have given you plenty of things to go after without, it's fine if some of the things he does work, right? Like we've said about some of these trades that he's made or additions that they made this summer. That's fine too. So it's an interesting time in that regard for this team. But all that to say, Norris himself is probably not deserving of this the general discourse around him. I think he's the type of guy that you you would think people would want to pull for.
You would think. Yeah,
What did we
hopefully we
think
see
of
him in about a month.
what did we think of the Paterka treatment on Tuesday night? No tribute video, no welcome back. A lot of boos
Good.
every time he touched the puck, which was not often.
Yeah.
Didn't hear a
Yeah.
lot of boos in the third period because the puck wasn't really on Paterka's stick very much.
I'd
He
like
was a
to hear
minus.
what the go ahead.
He was a -1, and he got the hat. Their big dumb hat after the game is their belt, their sword. Player of the game in the locker room. They said for a guy who didn't get a lot of love tonight or something to that effect, a guy that didn't get so they sort of called out that he didn't get his welcome back. And a guy that basically did nothing in the game got
Yeah.
their player of the game. And I don't know, what did you think of Paterka's big return?
I think if I worked for someone for a while and I got all pissy pants and forced my way out into a different job and different environment and walked back into that office, they're probably not celebrating me coming back either. So good for the
100%.
Sabres. Good for the
Good for the
Sabres.
Sabres. I say we mentioned it on Tuesday, like kind of hoping that they would have it in them. And I say
Yeah.
good for them. The morning of, Paterka spoke and, sort of asked directly whether he requested a trade or why he wanted out. He gave a complete non-answer. I'm just happy in Utah, focusing on Utah, and asked, what the summer was like and going through the negotiations and everything else. Oh, I just let my agent handle that. Just sort of completely absolving himself of any personal responsibility for this situation. And as we said on Tuesday, it's understandable and easy to figure why somebody maybe wouldn't want to play in Buffalo. And, but this was not necessarily a guy that had earned his way out or had much of a leg to stand on. Like he had not done his part to try to pull the team out of this situation. And that's where, when we've talked about accountability and we've talked about the the culture in the room, this was a guy that was moping for his entire last season and even a little bit before that. Body language and attitude were not what you want. The attention to detail defensively was not what you would want. So he was not doing his part to pull this team out of it. And look, some would view that answer he gave on Tuesday as the diplomatic high road. I would view it as just shying away from any sort of responsibility about,
Immaturity, lack of accountability,
yeah, a lack of ownership
entitlement
about it.
almost. There's some entitlement with him too, but
Right. So
I don't want to go too deep on it.
no, but I
It's
just think in general, I thought, okay, like you can own this situation or you cannot. And he didn't own it. And there's a way to own it, by the way, without it being a Jack Eichel, like, hissy fit like he had when he came back. There's a way to own it and speak about it in a mature way that I think most Sabres fans would be like, okay, like that's better than hiding. And So yeah, I don't think there was any reason to give any sort of welcome back or um, any sort of tribute video, and we've seen those things overplayed in a lot of ways. And so to see it not happen, we joked about JBD not getting one, but Paterka not getting one was like an actual conscious decision that
One
was
of your
made.
team's leading scorers the past couple of seasons. Yeah, nah, it
Yeah,
was it
like
was it was a clear signal from the Sabres, who have shown some that they could be sensitive at times when dealing with their own things internally and dealing with fans and whatnot. Not surprising, and actually, I applaud them for just saying enough of this shit with these welcome back videos and everything else. And good for you.
well,
We're glad you're gone.
yeah.
And they should have put up a Josh Stone, welcome, just another welcome to Kesselring and Josh
Well,
Stone.
there was there was a tweet from I'm apologies if I saw a video floating around Twitter and I don't know exactly who tweeted it out, but it was like, here's the Paterka welcome back video, and it was like 2 seconds of Paterka and then it cuts out and it's just Josh Doan highlights. Like
Yeah.
that would have been pretty that
That
would
would
have
have
been
been
pretty
funny.
epic if they did something like that. But yeah, the Paterka thing to me, it's like, okay, they got that one out of the way. Look, it would almost have been I would have understood if they're like, "Hey, let's give them a little welcome back and just not, stoop too low." But also, wouldn't it have been a little like a thank you, JJ would have been like sort of more of that, like, "Oh, we're just trying to put guys in good places, right? We just want to put Kyle in a good place to go win a cup. We want to find the right spot for like, no. At some point, you got to be like, stand up for yourself a little bit as an organization. It's like, thank you for what? He didn't
Yeah.
he never got them to helped get them to the playoffs. He didn't stick it out. And so, yeah,
They
whatever.
should have said, "You're welcome for the development and the opportunity we
Yeah.
gave." It should have been a "You're welcome,"
Well,
not
that was
"welcome back." Yeah,
what
you're
I
welcome.
wrote on Tuesday is like at what point did JJ Paterka not get what he wanted, right? He's a high second
Yeah.
round pick. He plays 1 year in the AHL. He gets thrown into a top 6 role. He gets power play time right away in the
I,
NHL. He's a
I,
top line player before his entry level contract's even up. Like at what point did this not go the way JJ Paterka wanted it to go? We can understand gripes with the organization, and he had a little moment with Alex Tuck at center ice where he was like, he was mic'd up and Tuck's asking him how it's going, and he's like, "Oh, it's unbelievable how they treat us here," type of thing. Which, hey, maybe is a little pot shot at the organization. Who knows? But um, that all's fine to me. Like, yeah, a lot of fans have some gripes with how the organization is run, but
it
from a
was also a
hockey
country club
perspective,
in Buffalo when JJ was here back
sure,
then.
yeah. Like how poorly were you treated from an on ice perspective when you
Yeah.
got pretty much everything a player could want? So good for the Sabres to, as a team, too. I know they didn't win the game, but they were overmatched on Tuesday with all their injuries, and they fought pretty hard, to keep Paterka off the board, but also to get that game to overtime. And I know they probably wanted to win it and not let Paterka have his little celebration with his big silly hat, but um, can't win them all. They get another crack at him on next Wednesday when they go out to Salt Lake City.
Yeah. No, and they'll get a crack, and that's going to be a test. Getting on the road, it's going to be really interesting. The opportunity, the Sabres have to get 2 points tonight, and the opportunity is there against a St. Louis team that lost 6-1 to Washington last night and has a league worst, I think it's minus 21 goal differential right now. They're firmly, the Blues are presently in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes, second from the bottom in the Western Conference. Quick injury update. You hinted at it, I think. You sprinkled about the show today. Can we just kind of bring it all together with injury update, maybe some new additions to the lineup tonight in light of maybe taking Geertsen out?
Kozak looks like he's good to go for Thursday night. It looks like an Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen game. Maybe that changes by the time people are listening to this. There's a morning skate in a few hours, but he was in the starter's net on Wednesday, and sounded like he expected to play. So an Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen game. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of that load management for Lyon here and trying to keep him fresh. Kozak potentially looks like a strong possibility to come back. Kulik and Zucker are probably both out again, but, I'm basing that on the fact that, well, Zucker is definitely out because he's on injury reserve. Kulik didn't practice and,
Okay.
sounded somewhat doubtful for this game. So, Benson still in a walking boot as of Tuesday. Norris skating. Who else are they missing? Justin Danforth still not skating, it seems like. Usually we see a stall in the locker room when those guys are back. So that's when Norris having one was somewhat notable yesterday. And that, I believe, is the extent of the injury update. The defense. Matthias Samuelsson did not practice on Wednesday, but that sounded more maintenance related than a concerning injury. So it sounds like he has a good chance to go on Thursday as well.
Left that horse in the stable while the other boys practiced. Good to see. He's been playing a lot and he's been doing a great job. Samuelson has. Jimmy Snuggerud, player to watch tonight for the Blues. Rookie, big shooter, playing on their top line, 4 goals, 4 assists. Saw a lot of Snuggerud when he was a prospect, whether it was at, University of Minnesota. Played opposite Brody Zemer on the top line for the Gophers last year before turning pro. Like him as a player.
Son of a Sabre.
Son
right?
of Dave Snuggerud. Yep. Great shot. Great shot. Is he son or is Dave his uncle? Now, wait a minute. I think he is Dave's son. But big, powerful winger. I like his game. Player to watch. And hey, you mentioned UPL. Does this mean do you think Colton Ellis, since he hasn't played in a while, do you think he's not over that back thing?
Maybe
We
not.
talked about it.
He's
Remember
been
we talked about
practicing
it like
ever
what's up?
since, but who knows? Backs are tricky, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners know.
Yeah.
Typically not something that you're worried too much about as a mid-20s type of guy, but he's been on the ice basically every day since
Okay.
it happened, but definitely
I don't want you to
something keep an eye
speculate.
on.
I just wanted to
I
kind of
think
wonder if there's something there, if you've seen anything that suggests
the
maybe it's still
ideal
kind of
situation
lingering.
that they would like to get into is Lyon and Luukkonen both playing well, right?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think is the ideal, and Luukkonen played well. So, giving him a chance to stay hot, makes some sense. Certainly the playing against your former team would have been a good chance for Ellis, but they also probably know him really well. So it's a double-edged sword, I think, in that regard. Interesting goalie situation for St. Louis, by the way, because Binnington got pulled last night. And so
My heart bleeds for Bennington.
well, it's like what do they do? Because now
Still
both goalies
defense.
played on Wednesday night and they're on the second half of a back-to-back. So who gets the net? Whoever it is somebody who played last night. So again, to your point, a spot that the Sabres should take advantage of. This team on the second half of a back-to-back, playing poorly, tired goalies, like they're on the road. This is a spot where you get 2 in regulation. 2 however you can get it, because it doesn't matter. St. Louis is in the West, so you don't care about giving up a point. But
we talked about him the other night, by the way. 5 goals against for Devin Levi last night and 29 shots, but he did have an assist. So finally, that little hot streak in his first 5 starts came to an end last night in the Amerks 5-3 loss to Syracuse. Matthew Fairburn, do your plugs so we can get out of here and everyone can begin their day.
yeah, you can find me at theathletic.com/Sabres. Have a story that'll post later this morning with some news and notes, a little bit of what we talked about here, a little bit of other stuff, and have a story coming out. It sounds like Saturday for a bigger picture story I've been working on. That'll be a good discussion topic for us on the podcast, but people should stay glued to The Athletic to get a taste before we talk about it on the show, probably early next week.
Good plugs. Matthew Fairburn, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for your time as well. We appreciate you making this show part of your routine. For Matthew Fairburn, you can find everything he does at theathletic.com/sabres. For the production crew, who is really curious what Matthew's story is going to be about on Saturday. Guess we'll find out. I'm Kris Baker. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the game tonight, Sabres Blues. We'll talk about it next time.